today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're going to be covering Moons Out 25's Armored TST run, or specifically my Armored TST run. Hopefully last week you saw our video on the passive thermal run that was done during the RO match, and if you did not, I'll put an end card somewhere around here at the end of the video so you can go check it out. However, throughout this video I will reference back to that several times. This video is going to be a little bit different than my other match coverage videos. One, because as the match director I have an insight into the match that the average competitor wouldn't, and I also had a unique opportunity. We did our RO match in January and February for the reasons of time. One, because darkness during our match would not fall till 2000. We had a hard 0200 stop time, and we had 6 hours to get 5 stages in. Well, the match was 10 stages, so for the ROs the night before to get all the ROs and match staff through in one night was going to be a physical impossibility. So we got as many as we could in January, as many as we could in February, and when March staff match came around, the people who missed a January or February only went and did the 5 stages that they hadn't gotten in January and February, and on top of that, they the ROs and staff that couldn't attend any of those were put in very small squads that could move very quickly, and by doing that we were able to get everybody through in one night. That allowed me the opportunity to shoot that staff match, in theory, in active division, and then the main match I was shooting Armored TST. So it had the potential for 3 runs here, ended up only having 2, and we'll get into that. Now, before we get into it, I encourage you to check out other videos in the match. A lot of people have put them out. Ian from Forgotten Weapons already put his out. I know that Kid Badger, PSR, Polinar Tactical, and several other people were at the match filming, and they'll be putting their videos out about their experiences, and I highly encourage you to check out all those videos. Additionally, this video will give you insight about what works and does not work, because a lot of things happened and a lot of lessons were learned here, so I hope you enjoy this journey with me. So I'm going to backtrack a little and go over the weapons I used in the thermal match. Notice I said weapons in plural. So in the January run, I used an AR equipped with an ATN Thor from 2016. This thing is like the PVS-2 of thermal sights. And doing it with that just to see what the bare minimum that could be done in the match. It's kind of the equivalent of the AK standard in daylight matches where you might not win, but at least you can do it. So this was testing what we could do in thermal situations. And I used this in the January RO match that covered 5 stages. And I had some interesting times with it, to say the least. We were shooting in the snow, in the low 20s of temperatures, and the targets started to blend into the background as all the ambient temperature became one. And a lot of times I'd look down and the screen would be completely white. I could literally, with my naked eye, see better than I could see with this thermal. So that left a few challenges to be overcome, to say the least. But when February came around, I switched up. So I switched up to this rifle, another AR, got an EXPS-3 on it, magnifier that I can flip out of the way, and a Nighthawk clip-on thermal. Now, the conditions in February were very dramatically different than the conditions in January and what they would be in the main match in March. Basically, it was cold, but it was also muddy as heck because it had been raining. Mud got everywhere, into everything, and you know, I think I'd rather do it in the snow than in the mud again, to be all honesty. But because of the temperatures that were hovering right above freezing, we encountered some of the exact same problems. Even this Nighthawk here, which is demonstrably better than the ATN Thor that I had used in January that I just showed you, still had trouble discerning targets. And if you refer back to the thermal run, you'll see that I struggled, especially on stage 10, where there's 32 possible hits, and I managed to get 1 before I parred out. It was that bad. Yet I could see the targets with my naked eye, even attempted to bend and aim, got close several times, but no cigar. So thermal, we're working on it. We want to make the match thermal compatible, and we are striving to get to the point where we can have some really good heated targets out there that we can do affordably, so we don't have to raise the cost of the match, and to replicate easily so we can have many targets per stage for you, the competitor. But moving on. Now for the staff match, right before the main match, the rifle I intended to use was this one right here. And my concept was for this to shoot active, but it was going to be actively passive in a way. I was going to use the Psionics Aurora because I wanted to see just how low could you go and have a night fighting setup. And it's hard to get much lower than this. Now, I have done videos on the Psionics Aurora previously. I'll put it somewhere around here at the end of this video. The capabilities of it are interesting. In certain conditions, it can outperform analog night visions in a very narrow band. In the vast majority of conditions you encounter, it is woefully inadequate, but it shows you the potential of digital night vision as this technology progresses, and I think in 10 years we'll see a point where digital night vision is ready to surpass analog or at least be its equal, but we're not there yet. However, I was going to combine this with a Key illuminator. And my thought was if I can get enough illumination out there that I can light up the targets enough where the psionics can see it, and I can target using this Aim Pro T2. Well, that was the plan. And that plan even worked when I zeroed this rifle just a few weeks before the match in pretty crappy night vision conditions. I had about a half moon, cloudless sky, but not the greatest night vision conditions. And I was like, I can see the targets on the range. I made hits at 100 meters. The dot is exaggerated by the camera, so at 100 meters it basically covered an IPSC target, so the grouping was nothing to write home and be proud of, but it was on target. Those would have been hits ringing steel if it had been in the match. And by illuminating with the Key, it gave me enough illumination at 100 meters that I could get things done. I was like, okay, yeah, this is worthy of an experiment. Well, then fast forward to the staff match, and yeah, didn't happen that way. First stage one, Rambo's reading Rainbow, standing at the target box. I'm looking down range at the targets that when I deploy PDS-4, or 14, excuse me, I can see them clear as day, there's no problem. You know, I can almost see them with the naked eye, but with this thing, couldn't see anything. Now I could look down at the ground, I could step back, I could look at the berm, and I could pick things up there, but at about 50 to 60 meters, how far the targets were away, this thing just could not perform. And but it's an idea for a future experiment. You'll see this setup come back in a modified thing. We're going to try it with the psionics again in the future, but we're going to see a different illuminator and slightly different setup if that is how low you can go in night vision. All right, so I didn't get to shoot the staff match in actively passive, for lack of better terminology, but I did get to shoot the main match in Armored TST. And as we go over these stages, you're going to see an interesting set of results, and there's reasons for that. Now, I started out wanting to use this, and there's the term starting out. This is a prototype light support type weapon that KE Arms is working on. I have mounted an IPITL C, which is basically a civilian PEC-15 on it. I've got the Vortex Strike Fire 2, so I do have the ability, if I can get the nod behind it, to aim passively if I wanted to. And as we started out on Rambo's Reading Rainbow, you'll see here in the video that the illuminator, while dim, was doing enough, and with slight offset it's very easy to see, but when you were directly on, it was very hard to discern the target from the shadow. And I started cranking off rounds, got a hit, was going to be able to struggle through and get the target engagement done, and then the rifle wouldn't work. And as you see, I'm fighting through it, and it turns out that I didn't realize it at the time because I didn't have time to really fiddle with it. You can't see well in the dark. There's a round lodged in the barrel. It's just forward enough that if I take the magazine out and I clear the rifle and cycle it, bolts locking up, everything's good. And if I put a magazine in and I chamber it, there's just enough to keep it from going into battery, thank God. Because the round's stuck in the barrel and the rifle went down hard. Now, under match rules, that was definitely eligible for a mulligan. However, I figured as match director that would be entirely inappropriate of me to take a mulligan, so instead I took the 15 penalties and went and got another rifle, which is this rifle right here. This is my M16A4 rifle clone with a PEC-2. This PEC-2 is definitely in the fall off the back of the truck category. Don't have the remote switch for it. And the top switch on it here little jankety. So basically I had to turn it on, leave it on, and just be careful of where my laser went so I didn't break any 180s. Because in this match, if you broke a 180 with laser, it was like breaking the 180 with a live rifle, and results in a DQ. Full power, and as we'll talk about here in future stages, that full power was not a plus.
All right, shooter, are you ready?
All right, so here we are on stage 1. Rambo's reading Rainbow. At the buzzer, you open up this footlocker, and as you can see, there are instructions stapled to the inside lid. This is to improve upon what we did in last year's match where you had to flip over a landmine and read the instructions there. Well, we decided to keep it in a box this time. This way the instructions can't get messed up. They're protected from the weather and all that. So, as you saw right there, I had a little flicker in my nods. This is my backup set of nods. My main set I had to lend out to one of our visitors. So my backup set's a little jankety. Gives a good image, but it doesn't have the best electrical connections, basically. Fire the cannon. You had to fire at that target down there at the right edge of the range. If you got it through, it was a 30-second bonus. Now here's where things start to go wrong. And you actually get a little bit better view out of the camera than I was getting through my nod, because you can see the target a little more clearly than I could. So that's why I'm moving the laser and the illuminator around, trying to get the right thing to see the target versus see the shadow. Now, first hit, moving on to the second. I had to hit all the plates on the spinners for 8 hits because there were 8 different plates. And it's just gone wrong, right? I don't know it right now, but a round's just got lodged in the barrel. Immediately go about mag retention there, as that's a 60-second penalty if I don't retain it. Fight through. And here's the thing of perception. While this whole fight's going on and stuff, you see my lasers all over the place. I had no idea that I had left my laser in constant on while I'm fighting through this problem. I had no idea until I watched this video, in fact. So as you can see, changing magazines, thinking there's a problem there. Wearing the Swedish SVS 12 vest here, and to make weight for Armoured TST, I've got a full water pack in there, plus that butt pack is full of ammo to get me up to weight. And
it didn't sound right when it
rode really well. It was a good vest to use for this contest. At this point, I decide the rifle's down hard, and I go ahead and decide to call it. And at that point, you know, just went and got another rifle. I'd like to thank you for tuning in for this coverage of Moons Out 25. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in tomorrow for Stage 2.
It's going to be a click. Yeah, it's not going in the battery.
Yep, something's wrong with the rifle. I'm calling it.
All right.